Peter Bechtold is the former director of Near East and North Africa Studies at the U.S. Department of State. He's joining us live from Portland, Oregon to discuss the crisis in Syria. Peter, we're seeing a lot of international condemnation, as John Terrett's piece points out, but it seems as though we've seen this, though, in the past. What's the right response to this, or is there one?
It's very, very difficult to say. Previously we had a horrific attack which the Syrian government said no, it was not, it was the opposition. I'm familiar with the location. Khan Shuyukh is on the road from Aleppo to Damascus, and it's close to where there was very with the Sunni Muslims and the Assad regime under the one has to wait a little bit to see what the final investigation will show.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because China condemned the use of chemical weapons by anyone in any circumstance, but they went further to call for a fair and objective investigation to identify the perpetrator with solid evidence. Those responsible obviously should be held accountable, but how long might an investigation like that take with you this as well?
Well, the technical part can take quite a long time, but one can predict that the Western powers would accuse the government, that the government would deny it, that Russia and probably China will side with the government and say it was somebody else. This happened before, so on the technical side, we have to wait. I have a great deal of faith in the Ambassador de Mistura, who has been the United Nations Special Envoy on Syria. He seems to be highly professional and very knowledgeable about the details.
The U.S. president said, "I now have responsibility when it comes to Syria." He blamed his predecessor for the mess. I want to get your thoughts on that. And then what are his next steps?
Well, blaming the predecessor is a game that has been played in many countries, including our own, and especially after this very unusual election that we've had in the United States. President Obama really could not do more, and it was wrong by many politicians to blame him for not having done more after the so-called line in the sand. You may recall that the British government refused to support a joint action with the United States against Syria. And when that fell through, Obama was left by himself. The American people did not want to have a third war in addition to Iraq and Afghanistan in the Middle East. And there was a great deal of evidence that this may have been staged by the opposition. I am not sure, of course, but the trajectory suggested it was not the government. If you look at who is to benefit the most, it is certainly not President Bashar al-Assad. He seems to have the support of close to 80% of the population right now, and it would be ridiculously stupid of him to expose himself by ordering a chemical attack, unless some underling did it without his knowledge. But it would stand to reason that the rebels who are in dire straits have more to benefit from framing the government in the hope that the world community will re-embrace them as they have not been lately.
Very interesting. Peter Bechtold, thanks so much for your analysis.
You're very welcome.